Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world that has mastered the art of speaking. Words are polished, rehearsed, and perfected to impress, persuade, and sometimes deceive. But hear this truth: you can fake what you say, but you cannot fake who you are. Words may disguise intent for a moment, but behavior exposes the heart over time. You don't need a prophecy to see truth. Just pay attention. Time reveals all, because behavior is the photograph of belief. It is the evidence of values. People may say they love, say they care, say they're loyal, but if the fruit doesn't match the seed, then the tree is lying. Reputation is built on words, but character is built on behavior. You don't judge a person by how they speak when they're being watched. Judge them by how they act when no one is applauding. Speech may win followers, but only behavior earns trust. Let us be a people who don't just sound right, but live right. Let us be the kind of people whose walk speaks louder than our talk, whose behavior is a mirror of inner truth, not a mask of outer performance. Because in the end, it is not what they say that tells the story, it is what they do. Words are the clothing of thoughts. Behavior is the signature of character. A person can speak with eloquence, dress their intentions with the finest sentences, and lace their conversation with charm. But if their behavior does not align, the truth eventually steps out from behind the curtain. Words can be rehearsed, polished, and perfected. You can memorize phrases, recite quotations, and even learn the language of kindness. But behavior is raw. It is unrehearsed. It is the result of patterns, principles, and personal discipline. What you say might impress people for a moment, but how you act reveals what governs your life. That's because behavior is not created in the moment. It's the echo of beliefs that have taken root in your heart. Anyone can say, "I care," but caring is only proven in action. Anyone can say, "I believe in honesty," but truth is tested when lying would be more convenient. You see, words are easy to mold. You can craft them to fit the room, the person, the agenda. Behavior, on the other hand, is stubbornly honest. It cannot keep up the lie for long, because it comes from a deeper reservoir. Your habits, your character, your internal compass. If someone says all the right things, but their behavior contradicts those words, believe the behavior. Watch what they do when no one is watching. Watch how they treat people who can do nothing for them. Watch how they behave under pressure, not just how they speak in peace. True character doesn't need a microphone. It doesn't need a spotlight or applause. It shows up quietly in daily decisions, in silent integrity, in unseen faithfulness. The world is full of noise, full of empty promises, full of performative words. But if you want to know who someone really is, observe their behavior. It will always tell the truth, whether their words do or not. You can memorize a script, but you can't rehearse integrity. A script is something external. It's handed to you, practiced, refined, and performed. It tells you what to say, how to say it, and when to say it. But integrity isn't something you perform. It's something you live. It isn't given to you by a director or learned from a manual. It comes from deep within, shaped over time by your values, your convictions, and your choices when no one is looking. People can put on a role. They can study the language of honesty, humility, or compassion. They can rehearse lines that sound sincere, but when pressure hits, when the lights go off and there's no audience, that script falls apart. What's left standing is character, and character cannot be faked. Integrity can't be acted out for long, because life will test it in ways no rehearsal can prepare for. Integrity doesn't show up when things are easy. It reveals itself when truth is costly, when doing the right thing means losing something, when no one is there to reward your honesty or applaud your loyalty. That's when we see who a person truly is. Not when they quote noble ideas, but when they choose to live by them. You can perform well and still be hollow. You can impress a room and still disappoint your own conscience. But integrity doesn't need a stage. It doesn't seek recognition. It quietly guides your decisions even when no one else sees, even when it costs you opportunities, relationships, or applause. There's no shortcut to integrity. You can't rehearse it the night before. You can't borrow it from someone else's values. It's cultivated over time, decision by decision, in the private places of your life. So don't be fooled by the performance. Listen for the substance behind the speech. Because in the end, no matter how convincing the script, if integrity isn't present, the truth will eventually reveal itself. Behavior is louder than vocabulary. A person can know all the right words, speak with clarity, and command attention with eloquence, but if their actions don't match their speech, the message is lost. Vocabulary can be taught. It can be borrowed, imitated, even manipulated. But behavior is deeply personal. It comes from what you truly believe, not just what you've learned to say. Words can be polished, rehearsed, even weaponized to create impressions or gain favor. But behavior doesn't lie. It speaks in the subtle decisions, in consistent patterns, in how you treat people when there's nothing to gain. People may not always remember what you said, but they will never forget how you acted, especially when your actions contradict your speech. Behavior shows your priorities. It reveals what you value. If someone says they care but never show up, their absence speaks louder than their declarations. If someone claims to be honest but consistently cuts corners, their actions undermine every promise they make. What you do repeatedly and without being watched becomes your real voice in a world filled with noise, slogans, speeches, posts, and promises. It's behavior that cuts through. It's behavior that builds trust or destroys it. It's behavior that shows who you really are, not who you pretend to be. Vocabulary might open doors, but behavior determines whether those doors stay open. Because people don't follow words. They follow consistency, reliability, and authenticity. And all of that is measured by behavior. Deception has a short lifespan. Truth has eternal endurance. A lie might travel fast. It might even shine for a moment, but it cannot last. Deception is always racing against time, trying to cover its own tracks, constantly needing new layers to keep the illusion alive. But the truth doesn't rush. It doesn't scramble to defend itself. It stands still, confident that in the end it will outlast the noise. A person can hide behind false words, crafted stories, and manipulated images, but lies are fragile. They need constant maintenance. Every deception creates a weight, and over time that weight becomes too heavy to carry. Sooner or later, the truth finds a way through the cracks. It might take a day, a year, or a decade, but when it comes with clarity and power. The truth doesn't need to be exaggerated. It doesn't need to be decorated. It simply is. It doesn't change to fit the moment or shift to protect reputation. It remains consistent, and because of that, it earns trust. Deception, on the other hand, creates confusion, mistrust, and eventually collapse. What starts as a small lie often demands bigger lies to support it, and before long, the foundation crumbles. History has proven time and again that what is hidden in darkness will eventually be brought to light. That's because truth has endurance. It doesn't fade even when ignored. It waits. It doesn't break under pressure. It survives seasons, critics, and circumstances because it's not built on convenience. It's built on reality. Those who choose deception may gain temporary advantage, but it comes at the cost of peace, credibility, and integrity. But those who stand on truth, even when it costs them in the short term, are building something that time cannot destroy. Because in the end, truth doesn't just survive. It outlives everything. The fruit doesn't lie. You can paint a tree, you can label it, you can even place it in the finest soil, but if it produces bad fruit, the truth of what it is cannot be hidden. Fruit is the evidence. It doesn't care about intentions, appearances, or words. It simply reveals what has been growing beneath the surface all along. A person can say they are kind, patient, or honest, but it's the fruit of their life, their consistent actions, the results of their decisions, the impact they have on others. That tells the real story. You don't need to argue about someone's character if you watch their fruit. Are they bearing peace or conflict? Are they building others up or tearing them down? Are their lives marked by growth, discipline, and integrity, or by disorder and double standards? Fruit takes time to grow, but it cannot be faked. You can impress people for a season, but eventually what's inside you will show, and when it does, it speaks louder than any description or crafted image. Just like a tree can only produce what it is at its core, an apple tree will not bear figs. A person can only produce fruit that matches their true nature and beliefs. When someone's life consistently produces selfishness, manipulation, or destruction, it doesn't matter how many times they say they mean well, the fruit tells the truth. And when someone lives quietly with love, integrity, and service, they don't need to advertise who they are. The fruit will speak for them. This is why observation is so powerful. You don't need to rush to judge, just watch. Watch over time, because fruit doesn't lie. It is the natural result of what is rooted in the heart. You don't need to judge people, just watch them. Words can be misleading, appearances can be deceiving, but behavior over time tells you everything you need to know. You don't have to jump to conclusions or rely on gossip. Just pay attention. People reveal themselves in patterns, not performances. The way they treat others when no one is watching, the decisions they make under pressure, the consistency of their actions, these are the real indicators of who they are. Judgment often comes from assumptions, but observation is rooted in wisdom. When you watch with patience, you give people the space to be real. You're not looking for perfection. You're looking for consistency, for authenticity. Anyone can say the right thing in a moment, but very few can live the right thing day after day. That's why watching is more powerful than speaking. It allows truth to reveal itself without your interference. People show you their values by what they prioritize. They show you their respect by how they treat those who can't benefit them. They show you their humility by how they handle correction. You don't have to confront or accuse, just observe. Over time, behavior writes a story words cannot erase, and the beauty of simply watching is that it also protects your peace. You don't have to carry the weight of proving someone right or wrong. You don't need to argue about someone's intentions. Just watch. Time is the great revealer. It exposes the fake and confirms the genuine. Not through judgment, but through quiet, steady observation, because eventually who a person really is will rise to the surface, whether they want it to or not. Character is not built in public, it is revealed there. The moments when people are watching don't create who you are. That happens long before, in the quiet, unseen places of your life. Character is forged in the private decisions, the small acts of discipline, the choices made when no one is looking. It is shaped by how you handle temptation, how you respond to disappointment, and how you treat others in everyday situations that seem insignificant. When you step into the public eye, your character doesn't suddenly change or improve. What the world sees is the fruit of the work you've already done internally. The public stage doesn't build your integrity, your honesty, or your humility. It reveals what's already been planted and nurtured in your heart and mind. This is why true character withstands pressure. It doesn't crumble when faced with criticism or temptation because it was built slowly, carefully, and with intention long before the spotlight came on. People often confuse charisma or public success with character, but the two are very different. Charisma can attract attention for a time, but character earns lasting respect. In public, character is like a mirror. It reflects your true self, exposing the strengths and weaknesses you carry within. It is in those moments that people see whether you are genuine or performative, consistent or inconsistent. Your actions under scrutiny reveal your authenticity far more than any words ever could. Ultimately, character is the foundation that supports your reputation and legacy. It cannot be manufactured for public approval because it is not built on applause but on the quiet, steady choices made behind closed doors. So remember, what you do when no one is watching is what shapes what the world will see when everyone is watching. If your behavior contradicts your words, your behavior is the truth. Words are easy to shape, easy to control. You can say things you don't mean, promise things you don't intend to keep, or present an image that isn't real. But behavior, that is harder to disguise. It is the natural expression of what is really inside. Actions flow from beliefs, priorities, and character, whether we realize it or not. When someone's words say one thing but their actions say another, it is their behavior that speaks the loudest. People may listen to what you say, but they watch what you do. Over time, behavior becomes the proof of your true intentions and values. A person might claim to be honest, but if they consistently deceive or manipulate, their behavior reveals the truth behind their words. This contradiction creates confusion and mistrust. It makes people question not only what you say, but who you are. Because behavior doesn't lie, it reflects the reality of your heart and mind. No matter how polished your speech, if your actions don't align, your credibility will erode. People naturally trust what they see more than what they hear. Your behavior is a mirror reflecting your real self. If you want your words to carry weight and meaning, they must be backed up by consistent actions. Integrity is built when your behavior and your words agree, when you say what you mean and do what you say. Without that alignment, behavior becomes the undeniable truth that people rely on to understand who you really are. So, don't be fooled by empty promises or smooth talk. Pay attention to how people behave, because behavior is the truth that can't be hidden behind words. It is the real message that your life sends to the world every day. You cannot manage perception, for every reality always catches up. At first, it might seem possible to control how others see you. You can carefully craft your image, choose your words, and manage your social presence. You can put on a performance, select the moments you want to share, and mask the parts of yourself that don't fit the story you want to tell. For a time, perception can be shaped like clay in your hands. But no matter how skilled you are at managing what people think, reality has a way of breaking through. Reality is not concerned with appearances or illusions. It is the sum of your true actions, your choices, your character, and the consequences that follow. Eventually, the mask slips, the cracks appear, and what is real can no longer be hidden behind carefully constructed images. People might be fooled at first by what you want them to believe, but over time, the truth becomes undeniable. Reality is patient. It waits quietly for the right moment to reveal itself. It exposes contradictions, inconsistencies, and hidden motives. What you try to conceal will show itself in your habits, relationships, and the outcomes of your decisions. Managing perception is like trying to hold water in your hands. It slips through no matter how tightly you grasp. The more effort you put into creating a false image, the more exhausting it becomes, and the greater the risk of being exposed. Authenticity, on the other hand, requires no maintenance. It flows naturally because it is rooted in truth. In the end, reality is the foundation upon which lasting trust and respect are built. You may delay its arrival, but you cannot avoid it. When reality catches up, it reveals not just who you are to others, but who you truly are to yourself. So instead of chasing illusions, invest in what is real, because that is what will stand the test of time. A lie needs props. The truth stands on its own. When someone tells a lie, it rarely comes alone. It needs support, backup stories, excuses, and constant reinforcement to keep it believable. Lies require a performance, a network of deception to hold them up, because they are fragile and easily shattered. Every lie is like a house built on sand. It needs extra pillars to stay standing, and one small crack can bring the whole thing down. The truth, however, is strong in its simplicity. It doesn't need elaborate explanations or defenses. It doesn't rely on smoke and mirrors because it is grounded in reality. The truth is self-sustaining because it aligns with facts, consistency, and integrity. It doesn't need to be remembered carefully or rehearsed. It naturally endures because it corresponds to what really happened. When you speak the truth, you don't have to worry about keeping your story straight or inventing new reasons to justify yourself. You don't need to keep track of what you said yesterday or cover your tracks today. Truth is transparent and free. It can withstand scrutiny and grows stronger under examination. Lies, on the other hand, are exhausting. They demand constant attention, constant adaptation. They force you to live in fear of being discovered. They trap you in a cycle of dishonesty that eventually leads to isolation and distrust. Because of this, truth builds lasting relationships, trust, and respect. It is the foundation upon which real character stands. No matter how appealing a lie might seem at first, it cannot hold up without its props. The truth, however, stands tall and firm, needing no support other than its own authenticity.